to make a decision and a different maybe favorite pops up, all right, are we building suspense? Is this made up suspense or is this real? It ends up being real. Miami ends up getting a big recruiting win. And, of course, if you look at the Georgia message boards, it's just because they spent so much money on him, which, by the way, is now legal. So it doesn't quite hit like it once did. They bought him. They can do that. But what is a little bit still, because when you cover it, obviously there's a approach to doing things. There's almost a template to what you ask a guy after they commit. That's been the case for 30 years now, I feel like, when Rivals and recruiting coverage started really becoming a little bit more of a mainstream thing. And, why did you pick the Gamecocks, or why did you pick Miami? What did you think of the coaching staff? What was the pitch to you? Are you going to recruit other people? It still does not quite process for me how open the conversations and reporting is now about the financial terms when a guy picks a school.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching, so there's a clip circulating of Jackson Cantwell, who, by the way, Wes, you mentioned how highly ranked this kid is. Every service in the country has him as, yes, the number one player in the state of Missouri, where he's from, the number one offensive tackle in the country, consensus, and the lowest nationally that he's ranked is number 3 overall. And so the On3 industry ranking, which is a weighted average of all the services, has him as the number 1 overall player in the country. So this was a huge recruiting battle, and Miami does come in and get it done at the end. And so that interview was wasn't that a Georgia reporter? Was it Jeff Sentell doing that interview? It looked like him to me. But
the one where he dropped Pete Nako's name?
Where he dropped the Pete Nako's bomb.
That was, is that Dog Nation?
Yes.
Okay, so credit where it's due.
Yeah, Jeff Sentell's asking him. And like you said, it's something that I've, honestly, man, like cards on the table. When kids commit, I'm still not at the point where I'm asking them a lot. How much did NIL weigh into this?
We probably need to start doing that more.
Yeah,
like,
note to self.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it a little bit more, because we do know, we get information sometimes that it factored in. And so Jeff Sentell, to his credit, did ask him, and he got more specific than how much did NIL weigh in. It was more like, was their offer the high, kind of like went a little bit deeper. And Jackson Cantwell said, basically, paraphrasing, there's a false narrative out there. He mentioned Pete Nakos of On3, who, by the way, took some flack for how he covered the Nico situation at Tennessee and ended up, from what I've seen, being completely correct. But nonetheless, he said it wasn't about the money. Now here's how I'm looking at this, Wes. In the same way that, I'm still not asking prospects a lot about the money, even if that is the case, even if a prospect is taking the highest bid, or if money was a huge consideration or the biggest consideration, you don't see a lot of them coming out publicly and saying that, right? So I'm not surprised that he didn't. Do I know the truth? No. I've seen what's been reported, $2 million this year, $5 million overall, whatever it may be. So I'm not surprised he didn't go there and just say, yeah, it was the money, even if it was. At the same time, I'm also not surprised that the narrative on the Georgia side, because you see this a lot, they took the highest NIL deal. To your point earlier, it used to be in recruiting, a fan base or an opposing coaching staff, if a kid went somewhere else, they bought him. Mm-hmm. There is, that is legal now, but some schools are still doing that. They're still saying, I took the money, Now, what is the actual truth? I don't know. I've never talked to Jackson Cantwell. I'm not an insider in his recruiting. South Carolina was never really involved there, didn't have a shot with him. But it is kind of fascinating that this has become more of a huge part of even the reporting. Like, we know it's happening. It's starting to be reported on more and more by guys like Portal Pete Nakos from On3, and prospects are starting to have to answer more questions about it too.
Well, I think it's still a little bit, even though it's talked about more, it's still a little bit in a taboo space.
Yeah.
Like, would we not maybe respect a guy a little bit, though, if he was just like, they made an offer I couldn't refuse? You know? Like,
Yeah.
But even, okay, so I do think we got to remember in free agency, which is not a new thing. Like when you're talking about professional athletics, like most of the time, not always, but a lot of times, you know, Max Fried, for example, signed an 8-year, $218 million deal to go to the Yankees. Apparently, it was down to the Yankees and the Red Sox. I don't know what the Red Sox were offering. I promise you the Braves were not offering Max Fried what he got from the Yankees. Quick Google search, Max Fried chose to sign with the Yankees, citing the desire to play for a team that values a specific approach to baseball, particularly in the postseason, and to play for a team that shares his values. And that's the Google AI summary. So Lord knows if it's actually accurate or not, but what he actually said isn't even the point. The point is, you don't want to go to your new town, or in this case, your new school, your new jersey, your just new fan base. The only reason I'm here is because they gave me the most money.
Yes.
So I don't really even think, it's not that you're lying. Like all the other reasons a player, whether it's Max Fried or Jackson Cantwell or anybody else, I think all the other reasons are valid. And Cantwell has always said, I wanted there to be an equal opportunity NIL-wise from all the schools. So, and maybe that was the case for much of the process. But then at the end, if one school tacks on an extra $500K a year, does that maybe make all the other aspects? You know, I may like the development at both schools, but hey, I can still get developed at Miami and make an extra $5. So I do think when it comes down to this stuff, we want the cookie cutter, like the fans want what is the reason? Well, it actually, in a lot of cases, probably is a multitude of reasons why you chose the place. Now, all of that also said, think about this, dude. Who would have ever thought we would be in a world where we'd be talking about a high school recruit who just picked Miami over Georgia, and he is being represented by Drew Rosenhaus.
Crazy.
Like, the Drew Rosenhaus, like one of the most elite sports agents of all time, represents this guy. So, you know, that being said, if you hired Drew Rosenhaus as your representation, money is certainly involved in your decision.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's a good point because sometimes, like we do want it very black and white. Sometimes a guy picks a school that he probably was going to pick anyway, even if the NIL offers, quote unquote NIL offers, were the same. But he ends up getting more from the school that he goes to, and you say, "Well, it's about the money." Well, it's still a combination of factors, right? Now, the money can put things over the top, and I'm glad you made that point about Fried. That was actually exactly where my mind went, because I started thinking about the pros, where money is a huge consideration. It has been always, because it's a professional sport, and the contract figures are very public. We can all Google what you just Googled. What does Max Fried make? What does Patrick Mahomes make? Josh Allen? These guys, I mean, I'm sure it has happened. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But generally, like a majority position, you don't see athletes sign a new deal and say, yeah, man, they just had the highest offer, so I jumped on it. You know, they're always going to talk about development and the fan base and the happiness level and blah, 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 you know? You even see the Freddie Freeman situation. He didn't want to leave Atlanta, and his agents kind of held the whole situation hostage. Now he ended up getting the biggest offer, and now he's with the Dodgers, and things are going fine there, et cetera, et cetera. But like there is some nuance to this thing, and I have seen a lot of people since Jackson Cantwell made the decision, just come out and say it. Just say you took the highest offer. And again, maybe the Miami offer did end up being the highest one, but he's probably not going to say that, and he's not going to come out and talk about this is what I'm getting. So we probably need to just stop wishing for that because it's not going to happen.
By the way, have you seen the numbers? The reported numbers?
I have.
So there's a lot of different stuff out there, but I'm looking at Wilt Fong's story right now. No less than $2 million per year.
Good for him.
Good for him. But, man, I know Miami wanted to win here. Is it worth giving a high school tackle, no matter how good he is on paper? What is basically, if you're just looking at rev share, and I know we're going to talk about some of that on the other side here, but almost 10% of your rev share budget for a year?
Yeah.
For a tackle who has not played college ball yet.
Not played a snap.
You kind of actually, I actually agree more probably with Georgia's approach to, hey, we're gonna try to. I believe this was Georgia's approach because this has been their big picture approach. Yeah, we're gonna maybe get in the ballpark, but really we want to take care of our guys that are playing, that are here.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know you got some greater NIL thoughts. We're going to talk some South Carolina recruiting as well on the other side. Thanks for indulging us on the national recruiting talk there, but Cantwell, big story in that world. He is Chris. I'm Wes. We'll be right back. It's The Game. All right, folks, this episode brought to you by our friends over at Firehouse Subs. Like we tell you every single day, firehousesubs.com, Firehouse Subs app, Rapid Rescue to go. If it is lunchtime for you or if lunchtime is coming up, hit up our friends at Firehouse Subs. I saw a billboard over off Garners Ferry Road near where I live. Chris, massive photos of the Zesty Garlic Hooking Ladder and the Spicy Dill Hooking Ladder. And the thing about it is, if you live on the side of town that I live on, over near Garners Ferry, if you live near where Chris is, out in Irmo, if you're in Lexington, if you're in Blythewood, no matter where you are in the Columbia, the Midlands area, there is a Firehouse Subs near you where you can get the Zesty Garlic Hooking Ladder, the Spicy Dill Hooking Ladder, or your just all-time, your favorites, your classics. For me, brisket add bacon, still number one. But whatever your favorite is, get it now. Get it today. FirehouseSubs.com and the Firehouse Subs app, Rapid Rescue to go. All right, welcome back. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. This is Big Timers Still Fly, I think.
Classic.
The soundtrack of my high school days, I think, there, Chris. We are going to talk some Gamecock recruiting. We are going to talk a little bit more NIL from a big picture standpoint as well. And, Chris, I know you had some thoughts on a tweet about, I guess, how things may work in if revenue share and if all this stuff ever actually goes into action, as it has been said it's going to be, there will have to be this sort of any NIL deal outside of the rev share will have to be approved, right? And there's an interesting stat, this from Ross Dellinger, I believe you said, about how many of the deals would have been approved that have happened so far if we were under what is probably going to be the new legislation.
That's right. So, as part of the House settlement that has still not been totally
settled.
It's unsettled settlement. But if we get it, one of many things is that there will be a clearinghouse that the NCAA is instituting to basically vet non-revenue share deals. Revenue sharing, that it is what it is. That's basically pay for play. You play here, you get to share in the revenue that you generate by making plays and bringing eyeballs.
Yeah, we still have to, money. For some reason, pretend it's not pay for play, even though it literally is.
Revenue share.
Yes.
Very safe, sterile term.
This would be like if our guy Larry at Firehouse Subs said, I want for Lenora Sellers to talk about brisket add bacon. I'm going to give him some money in order to do that.
And that should be a high dollar deal because both Lenora Sellers is awesome and so is the brisket add bacon. But I digress. First of all, Ross, nothing I'm going to say is a slight on Ross's reporting because I 100% believe it. He's probably the best college football reporter there is, college sports reporter. He's been all over all this.
Especially for SEC, man.
All over the SEC. But this nugget was actually from the spring meetings that are going on at the ACC with the ACC right now, and Ross was able to uncover that Deloitte was there. Now, why is Deloitte involved in college athletics? The NCAA has decided to add to the bureaucracy by bringing in Deloitte as a consulting firm to serve as the clearinghouse. And a lot of people have had questions on Deloitte, who also works for some colleges, by the way. How are they going to do this in a fair manner? How are they going to be the gatekeepers for, what a deal is? Back to your example about Lenoris and Firehouse Subs or any local or national brand. Why does Deloitte determine that? And supposedly they're going to have data from past pro deals, et cetera, et cetera. The nugget is Deloitte was at the ACC spring meetings and told ADs and coaches there that 70% of the past deals from NIL booster collectives would have been denied in their clearinghouse model, and that 90% of deals from public companies, I don't know how they are defining a public company, would have been approved. Now, I have questions on this. Let's go to the public companies thing first. Does that mean a publicly traded company? Does that mean any other company, just a local company down the street?
For purposes of this discussion, I would think they're using that wording, but it just means
non-collective.
Yes,
right?
Just any business.
So basically they're saying a collective isn't a real business, which is untrue on multiple fronts. Not all collectives are the same, first of all. So, let's take out the 90% thing. Okay, yeah, sure, you would have passed through 90% of deals. The thing that's sticking with me is the 70% of past collective deals would have been denied. How do you determine that? Now, I'm sure the ADs and coaches in the ACC ate that up. They love, that's one thing we've learned throughout all this is that a lot of people in college sports who don't like NIL love to be gaslit about it. We're going to get a congressional bill. We're going to get, when revenue share comes in, everything will be cool. We're going to kick all the collectives to the curb. And none of those things have happened yet. And even if they do, it's not like this silver bullet solution. First of all, Deloitte does not have data from NIL collectives. They might have some. Let me be fair. Maybe they have some. Maybe they've sourced some. Maybe they've gotten some directly. Maybe some schools have given them some data. I do not have to go report on it to know, but I happen to know this for a fact. They don't have all the data from every NIL deal that's ever been done since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they say this? I'm very confused by it.
Yeah, and so Darren Heitner, actually, do you have his response to this?
Yeah.
Nearby, because I think his response actually will be a perfect representation of what the overall response will be if these deals just all of a sudden just start getting denied. Because here's the thing: any coach, they can cheer this in theory. Oh yeah, it sounds great. Get rid of all, until it's their guy that has this denied. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So in theory, yeah. Oh, deny that. Wait a second, they denied our guy. Now we got a problem.
Yeah.
So what happens if, just as an example, so Jackson Cantwell reportedly has been promised $2 million. What if they're saying, "Hey, Jackson, you're gonna make $2 million. It's gonna be packaged up any number of ways." Well, then the deals whoever puts forward for him start to get denied.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've promised potentially more to players, and possibly even are contractually obligated to provide more to players than your rev share actually technically allows. What happens then?
Well, then
Darren Heitner gets a call.
Yeah, you call Darren Heitner because, and his response is, hey, if 70% of collective deals would have been denied, and he didn't even get to the heart that's honestly everybody's, how can I put this? Everybody's meter is going off. Everybody's antenna is up as that does not sound right. How would you even know that? You don't have the data from these deals to say that you would have denied them. He says expect a flood of lawsuits from boosters, collective, and athletes. They won't sit quietly as the NCAA's clearinghouse plays gatekeeper. So, and that's the other point, right? Like college athletics, the NCAA, they're looking for this silver bullet. Not only, Wes, will there be lawsuits if they deny, which this is all very predictable, by the way. Everybody's been talking about this for a long time. If the clearinghouse goes into effect, there's going to be lawsuits. There will be lawsuits regardless. If they take this posture, there's going to be an avalanche of lawsuits. Aside from that, do we really not think that boosters, collective, schools are smart enough to find workarounds to whatever the structure is going to be? Because that's all it is. There'll be workarounds, there'll be lawsuits, and they'll have to change the rules again and again until we get a bargaining structure. That's the only thing that's going to help, that's actually going to solve all this.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not interested in it so far.
Yeah, that's what's going to have to happen. All right, y'all. Promise we're going to talk some South Carolina recruiting. We'll hit that on the other side. This is The Game. He's Chris. I'm Wes.
All right, if you're a man and you are struggling with certain symptoms like muscle loss, you're tired, not sleeping well, reach out to our friends over at Game Day Men's Health. They have a man cave style clinic complete with snacks, complete with drinks, conveniently located in Northeast Columbia, right off and near I-77 and Two Notch Road. That's 115 Atrium Way, and that's Game Day Men's Health. 803-265-3161 if you want to give them a call if you're experiencing any symptoms like that. They have same-day appointments available for fast and convenient care. They have in-house labs. You don't have to go anywhere else, and they'll deliver your results to you in just 15 minutes. Then you can get yourself a consultation. No long-term contracts. And again, the comfortable man cave-style clinics with TVs and refreshments. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com or 803-265-3161.
All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central take over our Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, and you. Call us if you got thoughts. 404-6100, 803 area code, of course. Chris had a chance to go up to Rock Hill, man, for what I thought maybe we can do something like this in the Midlands, man, because if any high school coaches are listening, awesome showcase yesterday for just the amount of talent in the city of Rock Hill, which we've known. But so South Point, Rock Hill High, Northwestern, Indian Land, Catawba Ridge, I hope I didn't forget anybody that was there, all had a joint practice yesterday at one of those sports complexes up in, this one was technically in Fort Mill. There's a couple of different ones up that way. And Dude, there were, from what I was told, and my eyes sort of confirmed this, I didn't count, but 50 plus different colleges represented
True.
at this thing. So I don't know if this is something we could do in the Midlands at some point as well, but a fantastic way to, there were the top names, right? Like Jazavian Currents from South Point, Tamarian Watkins from Northwestern, a couple underclassmen up there that have offers from everybody. And so South Carolina was up there watching Torian Gray, Mike Furry. Georgia had coaches up there, Clemson. I saw Texas A&M. I saw Duke. Some other top ones I can't remember off the top of my head. But then also think about all the kind of not high-profile prospects that got seen yesterday by smaller colleges because of them putting this event on. So, I don't know. I think this would be something cool for the Midlands high schools as well if they could make it happen.
Yeah, I love the showcase events and we've started to see more of this even during the summer. We've seen like some mega camps, right, where kids go and they'll go to, like Mercer does one, and they have a zillion college coaches there from everything from small level to the best of the best at Power 4, and so it does give great opportunities for guys to get seen. And you get to get some work done. You get to get your guys seen by these college coaches, and it's another opportunity for the coaches who are still out on the road during the spring evaluation period, to get additional looks at guys, to be seen out there, to be a presence on the recruiting trail. And Carolina's been pretty busy this month dispensing some new offers, but a lot of the guys, Wes, that you saw there yesterday have been, of course, there's a couple guys committed, like Currents, but some guys that have been long-time targets that are going to be key parts of this class and or the next class.
Yeah, so I think it's fascinating that you have in the same city a few, handful of miles away from each other. You have Jazavian Currents, who obviously is committed to South Carolina. Some other schools still involved there. Florida State, Texas just offered, but pretty firmly committed to South Carolina. And then right down the road, you have Tamarian Watkins at Northwestern, who, South Carolina's first major offer for him. They are battling schools like Georgia, Texas A&M, Miami, maybe a couple other schools in there. But these guys, watching them yesterday, are both almost physical carbon copies for each other when you kind of walk up. The big, kind of just huge framed Nicky Minwari style in terms of body type safeties that are right there in the same town and have the same not the same offers, but a lot of the really, really big offers. So, Carolina, of course, will try to hang on to Currents. I think they're in a good place with Watkins, and I think it's going to be them or Georgia, but I do think it'll ultimately probably be South Carolina. Spoke to him a little bit. He has visits coming up, but I think a decision is very much on the near horizon. We'll see if he ends up even taking all the visits, I think. But lots of talent up there, and, man, people need to go ahead, lock in these names in your brain. Joshua Dobson, 2027 cornerback from Catawba Ridge. He's already a top 2 or 3 cornerback in the country, according to the recruiting rankings. We saw him in Charlotte, a month ago? Every bit of that. Like, he is a stud. Probably the early favorite for top 2027 prospect in the state of South Carolina. But I had a chance to watch Sequel Patterson, another 2027 guy. So these are your rising juniors right now, for those who don't follow it. Wide receiver, DB type. Most schools, actually, even though he's listed as an athlete, are starting to veer towards wide receiver. Mike Fury was watching his practice like a hawk, basically. And, I think is an early priority target for South Carolina, too. So I think when you look at what prospects are in this state, both for 2026 and even looking ahead to this 2027 class, 2 fairly banner years, I think, for our Palmetto State in terms of top prospects.
Yeah, there is some depth to the classes, but there's also some strength at the top where, if you're signing a few of the top guys in those classes, or even, more than a few. I mean, Tamarian Watkins right now is number 6 in the On3 industry ranking, and he's a guy that has offers, like you said, from all over the country. So if you're nabbing several of the top guys in the state for these next couple classes, you're getting some national level recruits. You're not going to go out and sign, hey, we're going to sign 20 kids from the state of South Carolina. Most years, you're not going to do that. I would say every year, you're not going to do that. But, man, the approach to in-state recruiting has to be this. It has to be, nail your evaluations, right? Even though you have the transfer portal, you don't want to, especially if they're going to other big schools, you don't want to look back in 2-3 years and say, why don't we offer that guy?
Mm-hmm.
That's weird, right? You want to hit your evaluations, and then the guys that you do offer and prioritize, you want to get them, right? Get as many of them as possible. And even in some of South Carolina's best in-state classes in history, you can go through and pick out, okay, that guy went to Clemson. That guy, like 2010, right? Really good year. DeAndre Hopkins went to Clemson. Like you're not going to get them all. Get as many as you can. And if you start going through the list of guys that they've actually offered and prioritized in this class, South Carolina's got a chance to get, depending on how things play out, they've got a chance to get almost everybody that they've prioritized. Contavious Anderson from Dorman, deciding soon this month. Looks ticketed
this
for
week,
Clemson.
I think.
This week, 2 or 3 days. You're right. He's expected to go to Clemson. But the others, that's one you won't get. The others, can you sign them? And so the guys from Rock Hill will obviously be a priority in this class. You've already got 2 of the top 3 in the state committed in Currents and Zion Giles from Carvers Bay, offensive lineman. But you've got a legitimate chance with several others in the top 5, top 10, and beyond, too.
When you've got Julian Walker right down the road at Dutch Fork, obviously connections there. His dad is on the strength staff here at South Carolina, so, that's certainly going to help, and someone that's been on campus multiple times so far, another just local guy that fans will need to pay attention to. Chris, I always think it's interesting. We track these big recruiting weekends that are coming up, and the closer you get, though, the more accurate your list of expected guys are going to be if you're doing it right. And so we're getting ever closer to that May 30th. We're going to count it as June, really, but you kind of have those 3 big weekends most summers these days that are all, in June or, in this case, very late May. And the guy I'm most intrigued about who recently kind of locked in a visit to South Carolina is Carter Meadows. And he is your next kind of, I would say, 5-star, out-of-state, elite. Can Sterling Lucas pull off another shocker-type recruit for South Carolina? And in this case, the Gamecocks are the only SEC school in the Final Four. And so right now you have South Carolina, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. All will get official visits. All are firmly in the mix. And Meadows was on campus last month leading up into the spring game for a couple of days. And it feels like this is one of those where Carolina has maybe been getting their work done underneath the surface. Maybe we didn't realize quite how involved South Carolina is, but Carter Meadows, certainly a name for Gamecock fans to know. The number 6 edge prospect in the country, according to the On3 industry ranking, and then according to On3's individual rankings, the number 2 edge prospect in the country.
A little bit of disagreement among the industry on his ranking, and of course these can fluctuate. This isn't like, it's not a good player, but Rivals has him at number 240 nationally. Point is, that's a pretty big, number 6 from On3, number 240 from Rivals. But still, man, when you kind of add this thing up, a top prospect, right? And so this is one, we knew that Carolina was very involved, say, with Dylan Stewart, like early in the process. But every year, Sterling Lucas either has a guy or guys that he's flying under the radar with, where Carolina's got a much better chance than you think. Or even if you know that he's heavily involved, it's kind of like the rest of the world's counting him out and counting South Carolina out. That happened with Stewart, And it's like, and Nick Carver. It's like, actually, they've got a really, really good shot. So we'll see where this one goes. He's been on campus before. Lucas has been involved for a while. This summer will be key because he's got some officials lined up, and Gamecocks will get one.
All right, guys, we're going to close out on the other side. Gamecock baseball with another midweek win. We'll talk about it on the other side. He's Chris. I'm Wes. We'll be right back.
All right, everyone, another one of our great partners here on the game, our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating. They're the sponsor of the Gamecock Club Hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays with Wes and myself. We appreciate everything that Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and the rest of the team do over at Krantz Cooling and Heating. That's Krantz, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com. And since 1983, they have been providing the very best in HVAC service to families and businesses around the Midlands. They've been out to my home. I trust them to come back all the time. They've helped with problems, installations, anything that you've got, they can help you with it from an HVAC standpoint. Go check out their reviews on Google. Give them a call, 803-672-3224. You can schedule an appointment with their friendly team. Again, since 1983, Krantz Cooling has been serving families and businesses around the Midlands. KrantzCooling.com.
All right, welcome back. Closing it out. Wes here, Chris here, talking a little Gamecock baseball. Chris, for much of last night, it looked like kind of that remaining one thing I think South Carolina baseball fans and this team had to hang on to for this year. Not that it was a ton, but that one remaining thing was about to possibly get ruined in the final such game of the year. and that was that South Carolina against mid-major opponents this year, for lack of a better word, has been undefeated. They're down 5-1 late to Winthrop, have a big eighth inning, come back, win the game. And, I've been looking at the reactions to fans. There's been some sarcastic responses like hang the banner, undefeated, not that there's much to hold, I guess, to put your hat on for this season. But in a season of a lot of lows, it was going to be just another, I feel like, kick to the gut for fans if and possibly, honestly, fitting for what this season has been if they lost the final midweek of the year.
Yeah, it's almost weird because we were talking about it before the show. I mean, there's been some amazing championship Gamecock baseball teams that you go, how'd they lose? They've dropped some midweek games and some midweek games to some very much on paper lesser opponents. Somehow this team that struggled mightily throughout the year has, with the exception of, a North Carolina, that's a good baseball team, but, your mid-major, midweek games, they've been able to stay unscathed somehow. And some of them have been just downright weird games, right? Like the Charleston game at Segra. Like, there have been some very strange games. And, to their credit, they got it done. And they needed, I think, a little bit of good fortune. Like, hey, that's baseball, right? You put ball on bat, put it in play, you've got a chance. So they had a ball, Winthrop did, that was misplayed a bit, in my opinion, that, got the rally really started after Evan Stone got on base. He scored. And then, Kazmar had the hit. And then they unloaded with a 3-run double, too. And did you see Jace Woita's reaction, by the way? He was fired up when he scored on that double.
Well, and earlier in the game, he got hurt, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that he was out, I mean, I didn't see where he got hurt, but I was tracking, I was listening, I was looking at Jack's updates on Gamecock Central, and I don't know, it did not sound good when he initially got hurt. So just the fact that Jace was good to go and was fine, was a great sign. And I do think this game maybe reiterated to me a little bit something that, and if you haven't listened, I thought Monty Lee, when he came on with Jay and Elijah, I thought he had some really good stuff. So I would go back, if you haven't, and listen to that interview. He filled in for Paul Maneri for their weekly sort of segment. And the thought of, yes, the transfer portal is nice. Yes, South Carolina's going to have to, quite obviously, hit the portal again. But this program, throughout really the entire time it's had success, and back then I would maybe compare your JUCO additions to, I guess, a little bit of what you have with the portal these days. A lot of those Ray Tanner teams, yes, there would be JUCO contributors on the roster, in the lineup, every year, essentially. But how many of those teams are built on high school guys, were built on development? And so regardless of what is about to happen with this team, regardless of what this offseason is going to bring, and regardless of who all you add from the portal, in today's college baseball world, in today's college athletics world, dude, I think it's important for Carolina, regardless of what happens, to have Bo Hollins and to have KJ Scobie in particular. Those are two guys that had great games yesterday on the roster for next year, because to me, that you don't want to spend an entire year, and I'll throw maybe Braylon in there at catcher as well. You don't want to spend an entire year saying, hey, we're going to roll with our freshmen, roll with the punches, good, bad, and ugly. And then, well, now they're in the portal. And I'm not speculating on those two guys in particular, but obviously we all know it's been a tough year. So if you're going to turn that around, you need to keep your potential stars like those guys on campus.
Yeah, and everybody's trying to get older too, right? So you can do that through the portal and JUCO, but the best way to be an older, experienced team is to have guys that have already been on your team and have them stick around and develop. And so in an up and down, but each of those guys have had some ups and downs, right? But mean, Scobie last night, the defense had the big double play. Great stab, stepped on third, threw it over to first. Hollins had the 3-run double. Scobie had a homer. Like, they've given you some glimpses of how good that they can be. And those are the type of guys that you want to continue to build your program around while rightly recognizing, yes, you're going to have to go out and get some work done in the portal, in JUCO, and all that.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll see what happens next at the end of the season. One final series this weekend, LSU. And then, of course,
number one LSU.
Yeah, talk about a schedule, dude.
Yeah.
So Auburn, who, they just had to go to Auburn, I think is number 2.
Yeah.
Now, LSU coming to town. And a series that Maneri would have circled prior to the year. But, anyway, we're out of time. We'll see what happens there. We got time to still talk about it. He's Chris. I'm Wes. Hope y'all have a great rest of the day. This has been the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour on the game.
All right, everyone, as we close out the show, I want to tell you about another one of our great partners here on the game. You hear about them every day on the show. It's Integrated Media. Michael, Nathan, their entire team can do anything that you can dream of at your home from an audio-visual standpoint, whether it's something as simple as just, hey, what's the best TV brand? Where can I put it? How can I mount it? Yeah, they can do that. They can do everything from that to a complete smart home system where you can control all your lights, devices, thermostats, security, and cameras, all from the touch of a button. If you're having problems with your Wi-Fi at your home, they can come out, check out your service provider, make sure your equipment's upgraded, do some free testing, and get you up and running so that you have no dead spots in your home. They are a one-stop shop for all your audiovisual and technology needs. IntegratedMediaInc.com or 803-948-8327. That's Michael, Nathan, and the great team over at Integrated Media.